Hi, I'm Matt Williams, third base coach of the Oakland A's, and you're watching the RO Sports Show.
Yes, you heard that right. That is former major leaguer Matt Williams, who is now with the Oakland Athletics as their third base coach, giving us a shout out here on the RO Sports Show. That's kind of tough to follow up, guys, but welcome to the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. I'm, of course, joined by our regulars here, Jeremy McKenzie to my right, Russell Parker on the other end there. So, guys, I just want to jump right into it. Daytona 500, the 60th running of the Great American Race, was this past Sunday. Russell, I know that you're the guy to go to when it comes to NASCAR, so I want to get your take about Austin Dillon winning in the 3-car this year.
Well, it was certainly an unexpected win, but when you come to Daytona, unexpected wins can happen, especially one on this case, the 3-car back in victory lane after 20 years in Daytona, since Earnhardt did it back in 98, and also on the same day of his death from 17 years ago, Austin Dillon wins it in 3-car. And to even spice it up a little more, Earnhardt, when he won his 500, he had a lucky penny given to him by a child, and he won that race. Yeah. Austin Dillon had the same thing happen there too.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's neat. Yeah, and when I was doing some research on it, I read that it was 17 years to the day on Sunday since Earnhardt's fatal crash. And of course, the week afterwards, they came to Rockingham. That was the race that was next on the circuit. And just real quick, I remember my father at the time was head of security, so I was able to go. It was very solemn there, very quiet. Of course, a lot of people mourning at that point. The biggest name in NASCAR, of course, was Dale Earnhardt. What, in your opinion, what do you think was Austin Dillon was able to do to get the victory?
Well, he had to move somebody out of his way to do it. He coming up from the outside lane. Drafting is the biggest part of a plate race like Daytona or Talladega. So you have to work the wind in your favor, the air, all that stuff. But Austin came up from behind unexpectedly. Eric Almirola in the 10-car, who just took over that ride this year. Danica Patrick had it last year. But Almirola came up to block him on the outside. Austin Dillon came in and pushed him out of his way. I mean, that happens all the time in racing. People moving you by. I know a lot of people are saying, a lot of Eric Almirola fans are very upset with that. But that's racing. If you block somebody, expect to get moved out of the way.
Yeah, how's the saying go?
Rubbing is racing.
Rubbing is racing.
Yep.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Jeremy, anything that caught your eye on the Daytona?
I just want to say congratulations, Austin Dillon, to winning the Daytona 500.
And another thing that I read was Dillon, the only lap he led was the final lap, which was the first time. Actually, the last time that had happened was just last year with Kurt Busch, I believe is what I read. So like you said, I mean, it was really close. A lot of back and forth. And talk to me a little bit about the teams that set up. I mean, guys are on different teams. How does that dynamic play into it when it comes to a close race like that?
Well, Daytona specifically does utilize team effort a lot. You got, for example, Team Penske was probably the most dominant team all day. Logano got her less than laps. Ryan Blaney led the most laps, led over 100 plus laps in that race. And I expected him to win that race with how well he was doing. Brad Keselowski was running well too until he got out into a wreck. But a lot of his guys, Joe Gibbs Racing, they couldn't work together because their drivers kept on crashing out. Daytona has a lot of crashes in it, so you got to be looking out for those things.
Yeah. And Keselowski was actually my pick to win the Daytona 500. Like you said, he ended up crashing. Another big name that was involved in that crash was Danica Patrick. This, of course, was going to be her last NASCAR race.
Yep.
And then, of course, she's going to also be doing the Indy 500 this Memorial Day weekend. As far as moving on, you had said last week that you predicted Martin Truex would eventually end up winning back-to-back championships. How did he do on Sunday?
He did fair. Certainly his team hasn't lost a step. He just didn't have the power in that car as he has in the past few times he's been Daytona, but certainly I can see him playing a bigger role when we get to like the 1 mile half tracks, the short tracks. He does so well at the 1 mile half tracks. I expect him to win about 5 of those this season.
Okay.
But yeah, I still think he has a strong chance of winning the championship still based off just his performance alone in the Daytona 500. But there's a lot of young drivers who showed a lot of great potential in the 500 who could propel themselves to be in that threat for him.
And I'm glad you brought that up because Bubba Wallace ended up in second place. He's one of those young guns. What do you expect to see from him this season?
Well, I expect a lot of success from him. He's driving for Richard Petty Motorsports. His first season with them, and first season Petty's been with Chevrolet. I don't think they've ever been with Chevrolet at all. So it's a whole new team, new driver. Everything's new for them. Bubba Wallace did finish, you said second, so I thought it was pretty interesting that the 3 car and 43 car were both 1 and 2 in Daytona.
Yeah, kind of taking it back to old school a little bit.
Oh, yeah. And then Denny Hamlin, the 11 car too. One of the Allison brothers drove that car.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I actually had the opportunity to meet Davey Allison way back in the day when they used to come to Rockingham. And there used to be a restaurant called Little Bo's Steakhouse here in Richmond County. And a lot of the guys, Earnhardt would be there. Jeff Gordon, when he was younger, would show up. So that was a little bit of NASCAR history here in the county. Now, after Daytona's over with, where are they headed next?
They're going to Atlanta, Georgia, or Hampton, Georgia, at Atlanta Motor Speedway. 500-mile race. Before that race, they got a double race header coming up with the Truck Series and Xfinity Series. So that'll be a lot of fun if you go out and get 2 races for the price of 1.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Sunday will be the I believe it's the Fold of Honor for 500 race. So it'll be a lot of fun going down there to a historic track like Atlanta.
And want to make a prediction?
Oh yeah, I actually want to predict Kevin Harvick to win that race. He does well at that track. I think he's probably the best one to have figured it out. But I think Jimmy Johnson's going to give him a run for his money there.
Yeah, and Jimmy Johnson's kind of now the old guy in NASCAR.
Yeah.
You know, it's still driving the 48.
Oh yeah, Lowe's has been with him forever too. It's just,
Right.
It's incredible how well that 48 team has done.
Yeah. Well, you've heard it right here. If you want to find out about NASCAR, this is the place to get it. We've got all the analysts, all the information you need. And then when we come back, we're actually going to have another interview from Scott Emerson, the Oakland A's pitching coach. You know, he helped us out with our inaugural episode. This time, instead of being in studio, we've got an interview from Arizona. He's down there in spring training. So when we come back, we'll have him, and we'll be right back with more from the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics.
At Richmond Community College, we can prepare you for a high-skill, high-paying career in a variety of fields. From business to education, engineering, utilities, healthcare, criminal justice, information technology, and human services. At Richmond Community College, we can save you thousands of dollars on tuition through our university transfer programs that provide a seamless transition to universities and colleges throughout North Carolina. At Richmond Community College, we are always developing new courses and programs in response to the communities we serve. We offer day, evening, and online courses, and you can now complete 5 curriculum programs entirely online. At Richmond Community College, we believe in helping you prepare for a better life. Richmond Community College. Local college, big impact.
Exit Realty Platinum in Rockingham has listed one of the most beautiful homes in Richmond County. Located in Rockingham on Ledbetter Lake, the home features 4 bedrooms with bamboo floors and a kitchen featuring stainless steel appliances and granite countertops, and a master bedroom that overlooks Ledbetter Lake, along with a spacious tile shower and the attached master bathroom. The open living space leads to the back deck with a perfect view of Ledbetter Lake, and the property features its own boat dock. Want to see this beautiful home? Call Nicole Hayden with Exit Realty Platinum, your source for homes in Richmond and Moore counties.
And we are pleased to welcome back Oakland A's pitching coach Scott Emerson. And just to jump right into it, Scott, how is it out there in Arizona? How's the weather, and where exactly are you guys at?
RO Sports, what's going on, guys? Well, I'm here in Mesa, Arizona, Maddie. That's where we're at. We're just southeast of Phoenix, Arizona. A cold spring training so far. Everybody's wearing sweatshirts, hoodies, and jackets, but we're very excited to get things going. And I'm at our spring training site behind me at Ho-Ho-Com Stadium in Mesa, Arizona.
So, Scott, spring training is still relatively fresh. So, what have you and your pitchers been working on so far?
Well, the pitchers right now, we're just working on throwing strikes, commanding the plate, moving the baseball around, getting acclimated back to the mound, to home plate, to having a hitter in the batter's box. We're starting to throw our batting practice to get ready for our first spring training game. So all the guys are excited to work the baseball, move it around the strike zone, and it's been a lot of fun to watch our guys work.
If the season started today, Scott, who do you think would be taking the rubber as the starting pitcher on opening day?
Well, if the season started today, with our big league pitchers not really being in shape and ready to go yet, I'm going to have to take the baseball and start the ball game if the season started today. So, it's very important for our guys to get themselves into shape. The Major League season's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So I'll take the ball today, and then when these guys get in great shape, they'll work themselves through spring training and have great competition, and we'll see who starts opening day.
Well, with that being said, Scott, I'd like to see you take the rubber, but when is going to be the Oakland Athletics' first exhibition game?
We opened the season, spring training season, on the 23rd, Friday, against the Anaheim Angels, or actually the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. So a division rival. We get to take an early look at them and see what we're up against for the season.
So, Scott, have you guys played any golf yet out there in Arizona? And if so, what's the best course near you guys?
No golf yet, just trying to get these pitchers in shape and kind of running out of time to play. But if I was to play golf in Arizona, I'd play at Desert Mountain, where my brother runs 6 of the greatest golf courses you'll ever play golf on. So it's up in North Scottsdale, not too far, but haven't been able to make it yet. Outstanding golf courses. There's a lot of great golf courses in the valley here, but I'll take Desert Mountain over all of them.
Now, Scott, I know a couple years ago there was a Will Ferrell sighting. He came and joined you guys, and actually joined some other teams down there in Arizona. But any chance we see Will Ferrell again this year?
Oh, I don't think we'll have a Will Ferrell sighting this year in spring training. It was awesome to watch him come in and play an inning for us a couple years ago, where he went around to all the major league teams here in Arizona, and he played every position that day. He actually played shortstop for us, so it was a lot of fun to see Will Ferrell, and that guy's a funny dude.
Now, Scott, I saw in a photo you sent me that your locker is pretty much right next to Rickey Henderson, an all-time athletic great. First of all, very cool. Second of all, are there any other legends hanging around that are down there as special instructors?
Well, we're not even a week into spring training, and I got to hang out with some of the greatest baseball players of all time, some of the great legends. Dave Stewart was out for pitchers and catchers camp, and to get the knowledge from him and even have him ask me questions about pitching is awesome. Interesting fact, Dave Stewart, 7th all-time in postseason ERA. So what a great guy to have in our clubhouse and talk to our pitching staff. Also, the legend, the greatest player of all time, Rickey Henderson. His locker is 2 lockers down for me. I've known Rickey for a long time now, but to be able to share a room and listen to him talk baseball has been awesome.
All right, thanks again, Scott. We really appreciate you taking the time out for the RO Sports Show.
All right, guys, thanks for having me. I'll talk to you next time. Good luck.
We'll be right back with more from the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics.
McNair Auto Sales is the place to buy your pre-owned car, truck, or van. To be the best, it takes big selection, friendly staff, and great pricing. We guarantee a no-hassle buying experience, and financing is available right on site. So come see us today. We're located at 1026 East Broad Avenue in Rockingham. And remember, with over 40 years of experience, you know McNair is the name you can trust.
Family Pharmacy is a local pharmacy that's been in business in Rockingham for over 10 years. Located in the Food Lion Shopping Center on US 1 North, we have easy access into the store and a drive-thru for your convenience as well. You can download the official Family Pharmacy app at myfamilypharmacy.com, and we'll help you set it up to text you when your prescription is ready, and you can even set it up to fill your prescriptions when due. Our motto is we'll treat you like family, and it's something we truly mean. We take the same care in filling your prescription that we would take for our own family. Family Pharmacy, we'll treat you like family.
And we want to thank Scott Emerson for that great interview. It's really cool to see him down there in Arizona, and they're getting ready for the upcoming Major League Baseball season. So we wish the Oakland Athletics lots of luck. They're almost turning into my favorite baseball team, almost. Still a Braves fan out there though. But we want to talk about something else that took place this past Sunday, and that was the NBA All-Star Game. Of course, with that, you had the rest of the festivities that came with it, including the dunk contest. I want to get into all that, but first off, Team LeBron ended up beating Team Steph Curry 148-145. There was absolutely no defense played in this game, as is usually the case. But all three of us, and Lance as well, all picked Team LeBron, so we were all correct this week on our predictions. Jeremy, you're still the man when it comes to predictions, undefeated, the guru over here.
I only got one.
Yeah. Well, I'm not too far ahead of you. But LeBron James ended up being the MVP. He had 29 points, 10 rebounds, and 8 assists in the comeback. Kevin Durant chipped in 19. Paul George had 16 off the bench. And then for Steph Curry's team, DeMar DeRozan and Damian Lillard both led with 21 points. So, like I said, no defense played. But, Jeremy, what did you think about the game on Sunday?
I think the game was a great comeback by Team LeBron. Everybody chipped in and did what they had to do, but when push came to shove, Team LeBron came out on top. Congratulations to Team LeBron on a great All-Star win.
And, obviously we've been used to saying Team East versus Team West.
Yes.
They switched it up this year. They took the top 2 vote getters, who was obviously LeBron and Steph Curry. And they were able to, almost like on the courts out in the park, pick their own teams.
Yes.
And I know that since we all picked LeBron, we all thought that he had the better team. Obviously, he and Kevin Durant could beat a lot of teams just by themselves.
Yes.
But Steph Curry kind of went with a guard-heavy team. That may have cost him in the end. But as far as the All-Star game, who did you guys everybody scored, obviously. But who stuck out to you as far as the All-Star game besides LeBron and Steph Curry?
Well, I truly believe that Kevin Durant also was another scoring threat. Take pressure off LeBron and the comeback win. And we know how Kevin Durant, his game style of play is great defense and also can shoot and come down, bringing down rebounds. So we're looking at that, and also Paul George, who contribute off the bench. So we pretty much, they all contribute in that comeback win.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would go with Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant as well. He's a really good basketball player all in all. So
yeah,
definitely go with him.
And you could make a case that if LeBron James wasn't in the league, Kevin Durant would be the best player in the NBA. I don't think that's much of a stretch. Also this weekend, like I mentioned earlier, was the NBA dunk contest, which a lot of people look forward to, sometimes even more than the All-Star game itself. I myself was a little disappointed in it, but I want to get your take on it, Jeremy.
Well, I think this year with the dunk contest, like you said, Matt, it was kind of disappointing because we're looking at different kinds of dunks we see by every year, or some people trying to eliminate what they used to, where their loved ones or somebody they idolized did before them. And I looked at the Larry Nance Jr. Dunk, which his father was the first winner of the inaugural dunk contest, and I thought that was very sweet to eliminate his father doing the same dunk that he did. But the dunk that kind of got me was when Donovan Mitchell from the Utah Jazz came and wanted to do a Vince Carter 360 dunk. Many of y'all know is well known throughout in the 2001 All-Star Weekend, which he came up, did a windmill 360, and they said it was over, and that's how he came out and won it.
And one thing that I thought was cool about the Larry Nance thing was he actually had his dad's jersey on before he switched up the outfit. Another thing that I took away from it, Donovan Mitchell played at Louisville. He was a Louisville Cardinal. He put on a Vince Carter jersey, who we know played for the Tar Heels. That same night, the Tar Heels beat Louisville by about 30 points, it seemed like. So I thought that was pretty cool, how sports kind of intertwine among each other. Russell, let me ask you a question. All right. If you had to get out there and do a dunk, what would you do?
Well, first of all, I think I'll get me a step ladder.
Well, let's pretend you're 6'9" or 6'10" or something like that.
Well, let's see. I'd probably go out there and probably park me a car on the court and probably do something cool off of it. I'm not sure.
Do something like Blake Griffin or Dwight Howard or something like that.
The possibilities are almost endless with what these guys can do. Whether it's bringing in people to jump over, bringing in props, costumes, whatever it may be. Like, for instance, Dwight Howard raised the goal up 2 feet and still had plenty of airtime. That's one of the reasons why I was kind of disappointed in it, is because they've got all these options to do. It's almost like the All-Star Weekend is centered around the dunk contest these days, especially over the last few years when we had Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon doing those crazy dunks. I think he did one while the mascot for the Magic was rotating on a hoverboard.
I remember that one.
So that was big shoes to fill. Unfortunately, just in my opinion, seems to be you guys' opinion as well. It was a little disappointing. So hopefully next year they can get some bigger name guys maybe in there, or at least some guys that'll come up with something more original.
And I'm still waiting for LeBron to enter into the slam dunk contest as well before he retired.
You and me both. And I'm wondering if he's ever going to do it, because I feel like if he was going to do it, he would have done it earlier in his career. And I've also heard tales that he kind of felt like it was beneath him, which to me, I don't like that, because you're the face of the league.
Yes.
And I understand maybe you don't want to get out there and get injured, but at least try to do it early on in your career. I mean, Michael Jordan did it. Who else has done it? Hakeem Olajuwon did it.
Vince Carter did it.
Yeah, these guys that were big-time superstars that had no problem getting out there and dunking the ball. So, but with all that being said, we're going to take one more quick commercial break, and we'll be right back with more from the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics.
Willow Tree Antiques and Gifts is all about rustic home decor and gifts. You will always find a variety of unique antiques, vintage, and new items in our shop. Come and see our selection of housewarming, new baby, and wedding gifts. For the man in your life, we have many collectibles, Boker knives, and leather. And ladies love the jewelry, purses, candles, hats, and t-shirts. We also offer a 30-day layaway program. Come and experience shopping at Willow Tree Antiques and Gifts.
And welcome back to the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. Guys, I want to continue talking about the NBA. We talked just a minute ago about the All-Star Weekend, some of the festivities that came along with that. In addition to that, this past weekend, they announced the upcoming finalists for the NBA Hall of Fame. They put out some pretty big names there, and just a few that caught my eye. Jason Kidd, Steve Nash, Ray Allen, Grant Hill, and Chris Webber, who in my opinion were five great to pretty good NBA players. I also noticed that three of them are former Phoenix Suns. I don't know if there's anything to that. But Jeremy, let me start with you. Who out of this group, who do you think is the best player, first of all?
I think who is well deserving is Steve Nash. Throughout his career, played for the Dallas Mavericks, the Phoenix Suns, and the Lakers. But mostly, everybody knew his best years came in Phoenix, where he was a two-time MVP, led the league in assists on 5 different seasons. Also was probably one of the best top 5 point guards of all time. But even got to the Western Conference Finals on 2 or 3 different occasions.
Yeah, he did.
And also pretty much he had a solid core group in Phoenix, with Lamar Stoudemire, Grant Hill, Shaq was on the team. Even had Leonardo Barbosa off the bench. But the only thing about I used to say, by me being a diehard San Antonio Spurs fan back during that time, you had to get over the Spurs in order to get to the NBA Finals, because we were the top dog during the time in the early 2000s with the Lakers.
And now that's kind of turned into the Warriors these days. In my opinion, I would have to agree with you. I think Steve Nash is the best out of this group. But Jason Kidd and Ray Allen are also two point guards. Actually, I think Ray Allen might have been a 2 guard.
Two guard.
But guards nonetheless. But 3 great players. Made multiple All-Star games. Won some championships in there. Like you said, Steve Nash was a 2-time MVP. Now, Grant Hill and Chris Webber. These are 2 guys that, right off the top of my head, I don't know if they're necessarily going to get in the first go-round.
Well, as right now, look at the history of Grant Hill. We know he played for the Blue Devils, all-around All-American. But I think once he had got into the league and had his great years in Detroit, went to Orlando for a few years, I think as far as, his injuries had derailed his career. But all of that, he's probably more deserving to get the that recognition for what he has done, because it contributes to the game. Now, Chris Webber, I remember him during his years in Philadelphia and Sacramento. Pretty much with Sacramento, with the big 3, what I call it, with Doug Christie, Pavel Stojakovic, and Mike Bibby, and you had Chris Webber at the time. He was the prime of his career, can give you 20-10 a night. But the only thing about it was during that time, you just couldn't get over the Lakers.
Yeah. I mean, that seemed to be the case every year.
Yeah,
it seemed was the Kings just kept running into the Lakers, and Chris Webber seemed to never be able to get over that hump. How about you, Russell? Any input on it?
I will say I don't know. I really don't know as much about these guys as you guys do, but I do recognize Nash's name. I've heard of his name before, so I would say he's probably the best one out of all the ones that are going into the Hall of Fame.
And Steve Nash played at a tiny school called Santa Clara University, which is about their only claim to fame. But Steve Nash is Canadian, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, he is.
Not that matters. I just thought I'd throw that out there. But talking about Grant Hill and Chris Webber, to me, they were good NBA players, but I felt like their best years were actually in college.
Yeah.
Grant Hill, of course, with the Duke Blue Devils, Chris Webber with the Fab Five in Michigan. And as a Tar Heel fan, one of the things I'll never forget was when he tried to call that timeout during the national championship, didn't have it. Tar Heels ended up winning the championship that year. Matter of fact, there is a restaurant in Chapel Hill on Franklin Street called the Timeout Cafe. And right on the inside, there's a giant picture of Chris Webber doing this with the ball in his hand. And of course, that's all history now. But we all, Carolina fans are always going to give him smack about calling that timeout that they didn't have. But again, I think Jason Kidd, Steve Nash, Ray Allen are all going to be first ballot Hall of Famers. And there is a chance that Grant Hill and Chris Webber could also get in. I'm not quite sure how many players are allowed to get in the NBA. It may be different than baseball and football. But nonetheless, still all great players. And I myself look forward to seeing who will get into the Hall of Fame this year.
I think the finalists the people who will be inducted to the Hall of Fame will be February the 28th.
Is that the day?
That's
coming up soon.
Yes.
Very soon. That's, Monday, I believe? Monday or Tuesday next week. But, of course, we'll get into that next week's show. Now, sticking with basketball, we're going to go back to the college ranks here since I was talking about that. The top 25 came out on Monday, and I just want to read out the top 10 for you here. As far as the ACC, Virginia is number 1 overall. Duke is number 5, and UNC is number 10. So UNC still hanging on in the polls, even though they have those 7 losses that everybody was giving us a lot of grief about as Tar Heel fans. But rounding out the top 10, Michigan State number 2, Villanova number 3, Xavier number 4, Gonzaga number 6, Texas Tech number 7, Kansas number 8, and Purdue number 9. Of course, like I said, UNC rounding out the top 10. So, for the most part, these are usually the schools that you see in the top 10. I know last week we had talked about how Auburn is starting to pop up there, Clemson's starting to pop up there, some of these teams that are more synonymous with college football. But, of course, Texas Tech is still here, and Kansas is right behind them at 8. That is actually the biggest game coming up on Saturday. Number 8 Kansas is traveling to Lubbock, Texas to take on the Red Raiders, who are number 6. That's going to be at 4:15 on ESPN. Kansas is 22-6 on the season. Texas Tech is 22-5. Now, the winner of this game is at the moment going to decide who's going to be in first place in the Big 12. Kansas, of course, has been in first place since I was in kindergarten. It feels like they've always won that league. So there is a chance this year that they could lose it. So, keeping in the tradition of taking predictions on games, I want to get your guys' take. Who you got? Kansas, Texas Tech?
Kansas.
Taking Kansas?
Kansas.
Yeah, I'm probably going to take Kansas too. I know it's in Lubbock. Texas Tech has had a resurgence in basketball over the last couple of seasons. I think they actually won the NIT a couple years ago and has kind of propelled them, their program. But Kansas is Kansas. Bill Self has built off of what Roy Williams did 20 years ago. The program's never really stopped churning out prospects as far as the NBA. So I look for them to win that game as well. Also in college basketball, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention the Tobacco Road teams. I know NC State's playing this Sunday. They're actually traveling to Florida State. Between the two, I'm going to take NC State. I'm not necessarily asking for a prediction, but you guys want to call one on that one?
Sure, I'll go NC State.
Yeah?
I go with Wolfpack.
Going with the Wolfpack. Now Florida State's ranked. They're 25th. They're right there on the outside. But, Russell, you mentioned that NC State, did they get a vote this week?
Well, I'm not sure about NC State, but I know Alabama did.
Alabama did.
They got one. Well, that's one more than a lot of other teams don't have.
So, yeah, I know we talked about that last week as well. So, Alabama doing well in basketball.
Oh, yeah, they're doing really good. They've came off of a big win. They come off a lot of big wins recently. They're still going at it. The only thing is that the smaller team, they're just not able to get anything going with those teams there. They're playing on the level of the other team. But I want to mention, the women's basketball team. They're actually doing very well. They've actually won against Tennessee at Tennessee for the first time ever in their stadium, and they also beat Auburn down there. So I want to say congratulations to the Lady Crimson Tide.
Yeah, anytime you beat Tennessee, I know Pat Summit is obviously not there anymore, but that's still a top program when it comes to women's basketball. So that's a huge win for Alabama. Who knows? We might be talking in the next 5 or 6 years. Alabama's more of a basketball school than a football school.
Hey, I'll continue with it. I like the full 4 team all around. I don't pick one team for football, one team for basketball. It's got to be all in for Alabama.
I do.
I mean, like I was saying, a lot of these teams are usually the ones that you see when it comes to college basketball. Your Michigan States, your Villanovas, Xavier even is a team that's on the up and up. Gonzaga, of course, played Carolina just last year in the national championship. Of course, Villanova beat us the year before that. Purdue's another one of those teams that Matt Painter, their coach, has really turned that program around over the last 5 or 6 years. So, we're getting closer and closer to not only the ACC tournament, but the other leagues tournaments. And then, of course, March Madness just around the corner. So I know you guys are excited about that just like I am. And I'll go ahead and say it here first. If we can, we're going to try to do a March Madness special. You guys good with that? I think that would be really cool. We can throw up our own brackets, talk about some of the teams, some of the big players that are out there this year, because a lot of them are going to be one and done, much like the guys on Duke, much like the guys on Kentucky, who, of course, this year Kentucky not playing too well either in the SEC, which has allowed teams like Alabama, like Auburn, and like Tennessee to climb the rankings in that league. So anything else you guys want to add for college basketball?
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide, yeah. Well,
We still the reigning,
That's
the
right.
reigning defending national champions in Chapel Hill until somebody take it from us.
that's right. And I would like to see us do it again. Three straight Final Fours would be awesome.
Not
Yes.
gonna happen.
Yes.
Probably not, but you got to have faith, right?
You gotta have faith.
You got to have faith, right? But we'll be right back. We're going to take a quick commercial break and more with the RO Sports Show brought to you by First Health Orthopedics.
With hospice, you guys just outdo yourselves every day. And I really appreciate it. I honest to God don't know what I would do if it weren't for you. The things that you do, I'm in approval of. And thank you. I don't know what else to say other than thank you.
And welcome back to the RO Sports Show brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. Of course, guys, the Winter Olympics still going on. The closing ceremonies are actually this Sunday, so this will be the last week that we'll have the opportunity to talk about it. Just a couple of quick things that I've taken away from the Olympics this past week. Lindsey Vonn was able to win a bronze medal in the downhill skiing event this past week. Also, the U.S. women won a gold medal in cross-country skiing. So that's Keegan Randall and Jessie Diggins were the two ladies that brought home the gold for the USA. It's the first time that the USA has medaled in this event since Bill Koch in 1976. So all the way back to the bicentennial for that. And then a couple other quick things. The USA men's hockey team, unfortunately, is not going to be able to medal this year. They lost a 3-2 shootout to the Czech Republic in the quarterfinal round. They were actually 0-5 on the power play, so that, of course, had a lot to do with that loss. And then another thing that I found interesting is Canada's women's curling team is also not going to medal this year. They lost Tuesday against Great Britain. And anybody that follows not only the Olympics but curling specifically knows that Canada's men and women's team usually dominate that sport. So I found it very interesting that they were not able to win a medal this year. But Russell, you got a medal count for us?
Yeah, Norway is actually dominating right now with 33 total. They actually got 13 gold. Germany with 24, Canada 21. Netherlands 16, and tied with them is USA.
Yeah, and with, like I said, the final days quickly approaching for the Olympics, I don't think there's any chance of USA catching Norway. Nor do I think there's any chance of anybody catching Norway. They're so far out ahead. They're 9 medals ahead of Germany. But anything that you guys have noticed this past week before the Olympics wrap up?
This Sunday, I watched some speed skating. I was thinking it was a 500-meter race in the women's, and an Olympic record was broken there. Nao Kadira from Japan broke that one there. So I thought it was really fun watching that, 'cause I don't know how Norway speed skate like that. It's just like the way they move their feet out like that. They're running with as
And when they hit those curves, they're so low to the ground. It's almost like you see the motorcycle racers when they bend the bike. It's amazing how these people are able to bend their bodies. But I mean, these guys and girls are such great athletes. And again, we wish nothing but the best for those competing for the United States. Now, back across the pond here to the United States, we're going to talk some NFL offseason. That, of course, is kicking off right now. First thing I want to get into is kind of a little bit of an NFL draft preview. The draft's coming up in April, and you were talking a little bit about Baker Mayfield, Jeremy.
Baker Mayfield, the quarterback from Oklahoma, and we know a lot of teams now is looking for teams. A lot of teams looking for quarterbacks with the Cleveland Browns, Arizona, Denver Broncos, and they looking at ESPN this morning and a couple of days ago. They had Baker Mayfield going number 6 to the New York Jets.
Really?
Yes.
Now, see, I wonder what kind of how well he'd be able to do in New York because, you know, Baker Mayfield's a good quarterback.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong. Obviously, he won the Heisman this past year. He has had some, I don't know if off-the-field antics is the way to put it, but, you know, remember when they beat Ohio State, he went to the middle of their field and planted the Oklahoma flag. Some people like that. Some teams may like that. Of course, some teams may get turned off from that. So I'd be curious to see if he ends up in New York, how he'd be able to deal with the media and everything that comes with that. Of course, Baker Mayfield, not the biggest prospect out there either. But you're right. I mean, the NFL is so quarterback hungry these days. There's so many teams looking for quarterbacks. Of course, Kirk Cousins is hanging out there now. It'll be interesting to see what happens with him. He could fill one of the spots, you know, New York, Denver, Arizona. We've talked about that before on the show. You know, Josh Allen, Wyoming's quarterback, is at this point, I think Mel Kiper has him rated as the number 1 prospect to go to the Browns. As their quarterback. Of course, Josh Rosen may end up in the 2nd pick with the Giants. You don't know what you're getting with Eli Manning next year. Of course, you know, it'll be interesting to see what happens with all these quarterbacks. And, you know, there's some great players. There's some defensive players that are out there, too. Anybody come to mind?
Well, I was talking about with the Kirk Cousins situation. Bill Polian had they had an interview today, and he was pretty much saying if the Cleveland Browns want a quarterback, go out to Kirk Cousins. Go out to Kirk Cousins, and you could pay him $100 million.
Yeah, and you know the thing is you kind of know what you're getting when it comes to Kirk Cousins. He's been in the league. You see what he can do, as opposed to some of these younger guys coming out of college that are prospects. You know, have the ceiling is high as it can be, but you don't know what's going to happen when they get to the big stage. You know, the guys I just mentioned, Rosen, Allen, Sam Darnold from USC, another quarterback that's slated to go high. Russell, is there anything interesting as far as the draft that catches your eye?
Well, I want to say something about Baker Mayfield. I don't think he's going to do too well in the NFL. I think he's going to have that Heisman curse, where most Heisman Trophy winners, they don't usually do too well in NFL. That's just how I feel about it.
Well, if you look at the history of the Heisman out of the, like, you take out of the quarterbacks, I think even with Southern California, you look at from Matt Larhart to Carson Palmer, even down to Matt Barkley. You're looking at the Heisman's. I truly believe Carson Palmer probably had the most decorated career.
Yeah, well, I never seen guys like Jameis Winston, Johnny Manziel, those guys who just had recent events with them happening. They just don't. I think they got like a curse going on with the Heisman Trophy recently, at least.
Well, go ahead. I was just gonna say it's interesting to me that you brought that up. Gosh, I guess it was probably a few months ago. I wrote a column about where are all the Big 12 quarterbacks in the NFL, and I started doing a survey and looking around, and you know, the only one that you could really count was Ryan Tannehill, who played at A&M when they were still in the Big 12. And I started thinking, why is this the case? Because Baker Mayfield was coming up. He, of course, Oklahoma's quarterback in the Big 12. And I started wondering, why are there no Big 12 quarterbacks in the NFL? And I think one of the main reasons why, not even talking about the Heisman jinx, but the fact that the Big 12 plays no defense. You know, every game seems to be a shootout. TCU probably had the best defense this past season in that league, but even still, they gave up tons of points to Oklahoma. And I think that when these guys move up to the NFL, every defense is stacked with fast, athletic guys from, you know, the safety all the way up to the nose tackle. You know, you've got a 300-pound nose tackle that can catch your quarterback. So I think that has a lot to do with it. Yes, they're able to fill the stat books up, but defenses are able to capitalize on turnovers more often in the NFL, and I think that plays a big part in it. So I agree with you. I don't think Baker Mayfield is going to be that great in the NFL because of that, and also because of his size. And I know Drew Brees is a short guy. Russell Wilson's also a short guy. But those two bring a little bit more to the table.
Yeah, and then also you got to look at it's all because of what the system you coming into.
Yeah, exactly.
Because even with Drew Brees, you look at when he came to San Diego, came after Ryan Leaf, came through a good system under Coach Mark Schottenheimer, and then you knew what happened to him when he got to New Orleans under Sean Payton. The rest was history.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, system has as much to do with it as anything, and the players and personnel that you have around you. Now, with that being said, talking about some other player and personnel, franchise tags or teams are available to put those on players now. So I want to read off just a few names here. Le'Veon Bell, the Pittsburgh Steelers running back, is obviously the biggest name that could be franchised. I know the Steelers are probably going to try to do that, but you mentioned that he said that if he doesn't get franchise tags, he's going to retire.
Yes, he made a comment after the season that if I get franchise tag one more time, I will consider retirement. I'm looking at this. This guy has been the cornerstone of your offense in the running game, in the passing game for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
Give the man his money.
Yeah.
That way you can still have some relief at the running game position, and you could probably draft somebody during the later rounds to pretty much could compliment him to take pressure off of him and the defense. Because you look at Big Ben Roethlisberger, he getting up in age, and then at some point in time you may want to refine a replacement for him.
Yeah.
And try to build your offense around Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, and them.
And Russell, what do you think about Le'Veon Bell threatening to retire if they tag him?
Well, I mean, you threaten a guy like him taking his, I guess, kind of in a sense.
Versatility.
Yeah. I think that's just, like you said, go ahead and give him his money.
Yeah. First of all, I don't think for 1 second personally he's going to retire. I think that's a negotiating thing that he's trying.
Or he bluffing, we call it.
Right. Yeah, same thing. Look, there's nothing to stop the Steelers from tagging him. That's their prerogative if they want to do that, and he has to know that comes with the territory of being a good player. I mean, look at Kirk Cousins. The Redskins tagged him at least twice. Look, Le'Veon's going to get paid either way. If they tag him twice, he's going to make probably $13 or $14 million next year. If they sign him or if someone else signs him, he's still going to make that kind of money. So either way, Bell's getting paid. But that's what you get when you're the probably top running back in the game. Just a couple other quick names that have been rumored to be tagged. Allen Robinson, the wide receiver from the Jacksonville Jaguars. DeMarcus Lawrence, a defensive end for the Cowboys who had 14.5 sacks this past season, so I'm sure he'll be saying, show me the money. And Sammy Watkins, who, of course, was traded from the Buffalo Bills to the L.A. Rams this past season, wide receiver, former Clemson Tiger. Now, another name that popped up was Case Keenum, who, of course, took the Vikings all the way to the NFC Championship this year. One thing that I found interesting, though, and I want to get your guys' opinion on it, is Case Keenum, Teddy Bridgewater, and Sam Bradford are all going to be free agents. That's all three of the Vikings quarterbacks. So, what do you guys think will happen with that? Who do you think will be starting under center next year?
New quarterback.
Yeah.
For the Minnesota Vikings, the success they had this year, which they took to almost went to the Super Bowl with the number 2 ranked defense and had a good offensive system. You're looking at 3 quarterbacks. Teddy Bridgewater, most of him know was first-round pick. It was also all-pro selection his rookie year. And we're looking at Sam Bradford, a guy who had a lot of potential early in his career, but the injuries had derailed his career. And you look at Case Keenum from University of Houston, who was a journeyman almost his NFL career. Now he has resurrected his career in Minnesota under, at the time it was Pat Sherman, now it's the head coach of New York Giants. If it was me, the coach, Mike Zimmer, I would pretty much keep Case Keenum because of the success you had. And Teddy Bridgewater, I can see Teddy Bridgewater go somewhere else to try to resurrect his career. I can see a team like Arizona or Cleveland could take a chance on him. Sam Bradford, all I can say, good luck, whatever you decide to do. But I think as of right now in your career, I think retirement could be an option.
Absolutely could be. Russell?
Yeah, well, I think Minnesota's going to find a new quarterback for sure. I think they could pick up Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. I mean, that
was a rumor. That was a rumor coming around there.
You're absolutely right. Kirk Cousins could, they could say, let's scrap these 3 guys and let's go sign Kirk Cousins. You're absolutely right. That could happen. Although I'm going to agree with you, Jeremy. I think Case Keenum will end up staying there. He had a lot of success this year. When you've got that defense, it makes the quarterback's job a lot easier. And you got to remember, next year they'll have Dalvin Cook back as in the running back position. They did all this year without Dalvin Cook, who, if he had stayed healthy, could have been one of the top, at least top rookie running backs along with Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, especially with him and Latavius Murray, could be the 1-2 punch.
Absolutely, kind of that thunder and lightning. Sam Bradford, I agree. He's had so many injuries in his career. I think that he would seriously have to consider retirement. As far as Teddy Bridgewater, he also has had a lot of injuries. You know, he had that shoulder problem.
And he had a torn ACL.
Yeah, that's kept him out for almost 2 full seasons. So you wonder, how much he's got left in the tank, even as young as he is, and how much he'll be able to contribute if he is indeed the quarterback there or somewhere else. But again, we talk about how quarterback starved the league is. All 3 of these guys will get a chance either in Minnesota or somewhere else. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Also sticking with the offseason, I've got a few names here of kind of big stars that have a chance at being cut this offseason. But of course, a lot of that comes down to they make too much money, which is usually the case. But I'll just read off a few of these names here. Justin Houston, an outside linebacker for the Chiefs, he's owed $15 million next year. So I think there's a good chance he could be cut. Mike Glennon, the Bears quarterback, for some reason they gave this guy $11.5 million, then proceeded to trade up to get Mitch Trubisky out of Carolina.
Mike Glennon, he will be cut because look at success that Mitch Trubisky had, even though he had more turnovers than touchdowns, but at the same time he has shown a lot of promise and potential what he can do. So even with a new quarterback, with a new head coach in place and a new system in place, I think Mitch Trubisky could succeed. Now, Mike Glennon, me and y'all know back during that time, a former Wolfpack, when he was drafted by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he was out when he was given the opportunity to start a few games. He did pretty good.
He actually he did
pretty good down the stretch. And Mike Glenn's not out of the woods yet. I think he could still be a starter in this league, but it all depends on what system you bring him into. But I think right in his career, he's the number 2 backup.
And again, I mean, we've said it twice now. I'll say it a third time. Mike Glennon's going to have somewhere to play if he wants to, just because there's so many teams that need quarterbacks. Moving on, we've got Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger from Arizona Cardinals. He is a free safety that's due $11 million next year, so we'll have to wait to see what happens with him. Of course, he's back there with Patrick Peterson.
Yeah, he'll take a pay cut in order to stay in Arizona.
You think he'll take a pay cut?
I believe he'll take a pay cut.
I could see that. Of course, it's just 2 years after he signed a big extension, so
yes.
I guess maybe some of that was front-loaded. He's already got some of his money, and like you said, I could absolutely see him taking a pay cut. A couple of big names out in Seattle that could be cut. Richard Sherman, cornerback for Seattle Seahawks, and Michael Bennett, their defensive end. Sherman is owed $11 million this year. Michael Bennett owed $3.2. So a couple names. I know Richard Sherman's name actually came up last offseason as being a trade candidate.
Richard Sherman, one of the top 5 corners in the NFL. You know what he can do. He do a lot of trash talking, but he can back it up on the field. I can see a team like Dallas to take on his services, because I believe Jerry Jones don't mind paying top people his top dollar.
Yeah.
And I believe that's probably going to be the best suitable destination for him. Michael Bennett, I think the degree where he is now, I think he'll probably will take a pay cut to stay.
Yeah. And it's interesting to see because, for the longest time, Seattle's been known as the Legion of Boom, that defense. And, either the guys are making too much money now or they're getting up there in age, and you're going to start seeing some turnover on that side of the ball for them. Talking about the Cowboys, Des Bryant is a name that could be cut. Wide receiver for them. He's due $8.5 million. In my opinion, this is, I like the Redskins, so I hate the Cowboys. But to me, he's not a number 1 wide receiver anymore.
I can think he's a solid number 2.
Yeah, I could see that. But, I don't know. I could see him taking a pay cut, but I could also see him with that prima donna attitude that as a wide receiver he has. I could see him saying, I'm still a number 1. I could go somewhere and still make some money. So I can see that going either way.
Yeah. I'd love to see him come to Carolina.
Oh, I'm sure a lot of people would. And then the last 3 names here, all from the Broncos, which is going to be interesting to see what they do this offseason. Demaryius Thomas, wide receiver for the Broncos. Emmanuel Sanders. So that's your first and second option when it comes to wide receivers. Both of them making between $8 and $5 million next year. What do you think's going to happen there? You know, we were talking about, I said that Kirk Cousins could end up going there, but would he want to go there if there's nobody to throw to?
Well, just like you said, you're looking at the pay cuts. Well, you're looking at $5 million, and the other few $1 million that you took your number 1 and 2 receivers are making. If Kirk Cousins decides to come to Denver and play, and those two's not there, I think he made a real big mistake coming down there because they really didn't have no weapons. They have an option to throw it to. But if I believe push comes to shove, I believe Thomas and Sanders will take pay cuts in order to stay because of the success they had over the course of time, won a Super Bowl together. And I think the only missing piece in Denver is a quarterback.
I agree. And, that's, I think the first episode, I said that I could see Cousins going to Denver because of the defense, because of these guys on the outside. I could also see a scenario where Cousins maybe behind the scenes contacts these guys and says, look, what are you thinking about doing? Because if you guys are willing to take a pay cut, I may be willing to come there and we could win a championship with that defense. I could absolutely see that being something. But the last name on the list is actually somebody from the Broncos defense. That's Aqib Talib, who is owed $11 million as their starting cornerback. Great player. Denver needs to get younger on defense, though.
I think Talib will be cut. I really truly believe that because you look at the history what he has done with Tampa Bay and New England, won the Super Bowl with Denver, but also almost won the Super Bowl with New England. Talib, pretty much, I'm pretty sure someday he will be in Canton, but looking at his history, I think he'll probably end up getting cut and go somewhere else and play. Finish his career out.
And I'm going to throw a team out there that I could see him ending up with is the Cleveland Browns. And the reason I say that is Cleveland needs help from one end of the spectrum to the other. They've got a ton of money that they can spend. I can see them going out there and try to get an established guy like Talib to play on their defense.
Well, you look at the history of the Cleveland Browns, even I used to call them the laughing stock of the NFL.
Well, they still are.
Yeah, because anybody who goes 0-16 and have a parade.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very funny.
Yeah, because, in order to get guys that are established to go there, you're going to have to overpay them. Yes. And I could see Talib doing that same thing. Yeah. Jacksonville did something similar, and they made the playoffs last year.
And I think with Cleveland, Cleveland probably could be the next Jacksonville Jaguars in the next couple of years. If you look at the history back, I remember that Cleveland used to pay all-pro players all the time, all month. You didn't have to be a Pro Bowl player, all-pro, and they paid you top dollar. They just want you to come there so attendance can go up, ticket sales can go up, and they have a face that everybody was familiar with. But it's like I say, Cleveland got to work from the quarterback all the way down to the kicker because they really need a renew team.
Right.
You mentioned the parade. I think that's one thing they're going to having that support for their team. That helps out a lot too, showing that they still got a fan base in Cleveland. Of course, I'm sure Cleveland wants to keep their team there, and if they're not supporting their team, whether they're winning or whether they're losing, if they're losing and they're really showing up, they're not going to want to stick around. The Browns name could go somewhere else.
And like another team like the Oakland Raiders in the next couple of years will be going to Las Vegas, but it's very disheartening and very sad because over the course of time, win or lose, Oakland always had a strong fan base in the stadiums. And when they decided to sell the team to Las Vegas, I said, then what's going to happen to the diehard fans who show out in their silver and black every Sunday after Sunday or whatever day Oakland plays?
I guess they'll have to travel a little east to Las Vegas.
Yes.
But, you mentioned the Raiders. A name, kind of a big name in my opinion, that's already been cut is kicker Sebastian Janikowski. We were talking during the break. This guy is like 6'6". He's like 220, way bigger than a lot of the kickers you see. Now, he's been in the league since, 2000 when he was drafted, and obviously that's, 18 seasons. That's a lot of years, but kickers can last. You see him ending up somewhere else?
I truly believe he can, because you probably look at a lot of teams could be looking for kickers, and I think the best chance he might want to do is try to compete for a Super Bowl because you're looking at he probably already going to Kansas someday.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt in my mind he'll end up being a Hall of Famer in the NFL. And one other quick thing, you were talking about teams that have overspent on free agents. The Washington Redskins are one of those teams that have notoriously done that with Daniel Snyder as our owner. Another name that wasn't on this list, but I actually read somewhere else, is Josh Norman. is a name that could end up being cut. And of course, we just picked him up 2 years ago. At that point, with the Panthers, was one of the best cornerbacks in the league. Still is, in my opinion. Of course, I'm a little biased, but I don't think he's going to get cut. But can you see that happening?
Well, it'll be Josh Norman. It'll be real nice for you to get cut so we can take you back. But at this moment, right now, I think the Redskins and Josh Norman can work out some kind of compromise to the point where Josh Norman could take a pay cut.
Yeah, and I don't know that he'll take a pay cut, but I think they'll be able to work some kind of agreement out to be able to keep him in a Redskins uniform. So that ends it for the NFL, but we're going to be right back. We're going to do our regular Love It or Hate It edition, and right back more from the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. And welcome back to the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. Now, I know I teased we're going to do Love It or Hate It, guys, but before we do that, of course, this past Monday was President's Day, so I proposed a little something different to these guys, and I asked them who would be on your Mount Rushmore all-time for sports. Now, it doesn't have to just be an athlete. Could be a coach, could be a manager, could be an owner, whatever you want it to be. So, Russell, let's start with you. Who's on your top 4 Mount Rushmore all-time in sports?
Well, in no particular order, but the first one on top of my list is Tiger Woods.
Oh, that's a good one.
Oh, yeah. PGA. He got me into golf when I was a kid, watching him on TV. The only one I knew at the time. I love golf. I go out and play all the time. But my second one would be Dale Earnhardt.
Okay.
I think it speaks for it right there. 7 Winston Cup championships. A lot of wins underneath his name, and just huge for NASCAR. Made a big difference in it. Also, this might sound a little biased, but Nick Saban.
Okay.
And Coach Bear Bryant.
Oh, so two Bama boys on there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Jeremy, how about your Mount Rushmore?
I'm going with, first of all, I'm going with football is Cleveland Browns all-time great, Jim Brown. For basketball, it'll be Michael Jordan, probably one of the greatest all-time basketball players of all time. We know his stats and his words speak for him. For wrestling, I was going to say Hollywood Hulk Hogan, but I can say go with The Rock.
Okay, so you're getting wrestling in there. All right.
Yeah, I'm going with The Rock. You can smell what The Rock is cooking.
All right.
And for baseball, I pretty much had to go with Babe Ruth.
Okay. So you kind of went all across the spectrum as far as sports. My Mount Rushmore, I got to go with Michael Jordan. You can make a case that he is the greatest, not only in basketball, but of all the sports. In that same debate that we had a few weeks ago, I've also got Tom Brady on my list with all the Super Bowls and MVPs that he's won. This one, no one's probably going to agree with me, but I have Chipper Jones up there.
I agree with that.
And I've got a little bobblehead down here at the end, but being a lifetime Braves fan, Chipper Jones has been my favorite Brave since he's been in the league back in 1995 when he first came around. And then my ending of my Mount Rushmore, I have Muhammad Ali.
Oh yeah.
Thriller in Manila, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. So. That's my Mount Rushmore. I appreciate you guys doing that. Now, let's get on to Love It or Hate It edition. First off, going to talk some baseball here. New York Mets GM Sandy Alderson said that he expects Tim Tebow to be in the majors at some point this season. Jeremy, love it or hate it?
I love it. If you want to pursue a career change from football to baseball, go for it.
All right.
I love it, too. I think it will be a good transition from a quarterback to throwing a baseball. I think that helps out a lot, so love it.
I'm going to go with hate it, and here's why. Tim Tebow was a great football player, but was never able to make it in the NFL. He's a pretty good baseball player. I don't ever think that he's got the talent to make it and sustain it in the major leagues. So, in my opinion, he's taking the spot of another prospect that could have that place that he's in. That's why I don't like it. Tim Tebow being with the Mets to me is almost just like a publicity stunt. Yes, he's got some talent. Yes, he hit some home runs in single A ball. I mean, come on, that's obviously not the same level as Major League Baseball. So I'm just going to say hate it, just because if I was the Mets, I would rather have someone who actually has a chance of producing at the Major League level to be in his spot. Moving on, Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, has said that they're thinking about changing the seeding format for the playoffs. What they want to do is they want to do away with East and West and take whoever has the best record, 1 through 16, would be the top 16 teams that get in. Jeremy, love it or hate it?
I kind of hate it because if you look at the playoff seedings, your top 8 from the West and Eastern conferences always compete for the NBA title, and to me, and you have teams who below the 8 who had over 500 records don't qualify. If he want to do something like that, then to me, you need to add 2 more teams in who have over 500 records to at least try to make it to the playoffs. That way, that kind of can save a lot of players, get players prepared for it, and they also can save a lot of coaches' jobs and everything. But to me personally, I hate the seeding. I really do.
I hate it too. I like the traditional conference champion. Where you have a way to crown a conference champion, and then go on. The top 2 of those will play each other for a championship. I like that format. I like the NFL format. I wish college football would do the same thing with conference champions facing each other for a bigger playoff down there, but still, I think that will work out.
And that's an argument for a whole nother day that we can get into as far as college football. I'm going to disagree with you guys again. I'm going to say love it. The reason I love it is more so in the East than the West. The top 8 teams from the East, usually when you get down to 6, 7, and 8, sometimes those teams don't even have 500 records. The Hornets have been one of those teams before, where they may be, 3 or 4, 5 or 6 games under 500. To me, those teams have no business being in the playoffs.
That's
Whereas
right.
You've got some teams in the West that are in the 9, 10, 11 spot that are over 500. So with that being said, I think it's only fair that whether you're in the East Coast or the West Coast, you should be able to have the top 16 teams in there based on record.
Yes.
So to me, I think that's fair, but I get you guys' point on that. Now, something that we were discussing in the parking lot earlier, Marty Herney has become the Panthers GM again. He's had some allegations as far as sexual assault, I believe it was.
Harassment.
They found no wrongdoing there, but Jeremy, I think I know what you're going to say, but love it or hate it?
I hate it because if you look at the history of the Carolina Panthers under his leadership, which one thing I give him credit for was he will re-sign his core players. Even when he came back to the Panthers organization, he gave Trey Turner his money, Kawan Short his money, and now he got to make big decisions coming up with Starla Tullier, Andrew Norwell, and also with the Jonathan Stewart situation. But Marty Herney as well, he had drafted a lot of guys who are still in the league, from Thomas Davis to Luke Kuechly to Julius Peppers, and a lot of them is still playing to this day and producing. But I hate the situation because you resign a guy who pretty much already been in the organization before. I think you need a fresh face within the organization who can bring fresh ideas and how to do away with NFL draft, the free agency, and how to stay under the salary cap as well.
Russell?
I guess I would say love it. And well, question: did he get fired for those sexual allegations beforehand? Like, was the controversy was the reason why he got released?
No, he was fired because of the direction the Carolina Panthers was going in during a few years ago, and that made Jerry Richardson at the time hire Dave Gettleman from the New York Giants to become their GM, and the success under Gettleman took him to the Super Bowl. But as of last year, Gettleman was fired before training camp, in which that kind of shocked everybody. But as of right now, Marty Herney is back with us on a permanent basis.
No, I guess I would go with hate it then, because I think that you know, like you said, you need a fresh face. If you've already been there, it didn't work out, it wasn't successful, try something else.
Yeah, and you know, I can see that too. I'll just say hate it because obviously this guy wasn't doing the job the first go round. They fired him. Why bring him back? You know, so I think we can all agree on that. Maybe it's time to bring someone new in there. Of course, they know more about it than we do, and what we say is not going to change their decision. But
That's right.
Sticking with North Carolina sports GMs, the Hornets have decided to move on from their general manager, Rich Cho. They fired him earlier this week. I've been reading that a possible replacement could be Mitch Kupchak, formerly with, actually, I think he might be still with the Lakers.
Yeah.
So
He also is a teammate of Michael Jordan at Chapel Hill.
that's right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, and I think that's one of the reasons why Michael Jordan is looking at him. But bringing on Kupchak, love it or hate it?
I love it. I love it. If Michael Jordan decides to hire him, I love it because if you look at, you can bring that Laker mentality come to Charlotte. That way we have a lot of money in cap space where we can bring in 2, maybe 3 superstars to come to Charlotte because we already got 2 core players in Kemba Walker and Dwight Howard. And then also you have a lot of role players there. We just need a few pieces to get over the playoff hump.
Okay.
And then where we could compete for a championship.
All right, Russell?
Yeah, I love it too. Anytime you can bring a big name like that from a big team, bring it here to Carolina and make a huge deal out of it. I mean, we could, like you said, we have some star players come in. I doubt we'll get LeBron, but
Yeah.
I mean, anything can happen. But yeah, I say love it.
Yeah, I love it both ways. I love that they got rid of Rich Cho because, to me, he's made some questionable moves, signed some guys to some numbers that they probably should have stayed away from. One of those thinking Nicholas Batum. I think they paid him a little too much money. If we can get Mitch Kupchak, I absolutely love it because you got not only the Tar Heel factor being in North Carolina, Michael Jordan there, of course, but he's been successful with the Lakers. Whether it be a free agency or through the draft, I think Kupchak would be an excellent hire if that's the direction the Hornets decide to go. And finally, love it or hate it, guys, the Miami Dolphins have officially tagged wide receiver Jarvis Landry.
I love it. Resign your core players. You know, Jarvis Landry, who led the league in receptions this year with 112 and with 12 touchdowns and over 900 yards. So keep your offense clicking to resign your core players.
Yeah, Russell?
I say love it.
And I'm going to say love it too. I think they expect Ryan Tannehill to be back next year.
Yes.
Of course, we know he got hurt this past season. Jay Cutler came in. They had a disappointing season. Ended up letting Jay Ajayi go to the Eagles. Of course, we know how that turned out.
Yes.
But yeah, like you said, I think the guys that are your playmakers, those are the ones you need to sign, or at least in this case, keep a tag on. Speaking of football, right now, while we've been doing this show out at Richmond Senior High School, Coach Brian Till has had his State of the Program address. I know the Richmond Observer will be out there, and you'll be able to read that tomorrow morning when that comes out. But I think it's really great what Coach Till has done for the program, and this is another great thing that he's doing because he's invited not just football players in the area, not just the football players' families, but elected officials, church leaders, people in the community, kids that may play football a decade from now, which I think is great. You guys have an opinion on that?
I think that's a very good thing that Coach Till is doing to invite everyone from the county to come out here, what he has to say, and get positive feedback. You know, we're gonna have a little negative in the process, but it's always good to hear from the citizens of Richmond County how the football program is going. Even though we know that Richmond High School is a football winning traditional school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I think opening up the program to the community, having their involvement in it, it will help bring the county come closer together and come around this team and maybe even around the rest of the other sports too. It brings that together. I think that's really great for the county.
I agree. Well, guys, another one in the books for the RO Sports Show. Hope you guys had another good time. I know I did.
Yes.
And once again, we'll be right back same time on Thursday at 5:30. You can watch us on the RO app, the RO's Facebook page, the RO's YouTube page. You can also listen to us on The Classic Rock. Just so many ways to catch the show, and of course, it's all free. So once again, thank you for watching the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. And we'll see you again right here next week.